It is the Anfield Wrap. I'm Neil Atkinson, and coming up, we've got Natasha Dowie and Mark McBay. That is something to look forward to. And in front of me, I've got Beth, Lindop, Ian, Ryan, and Jake Nolan all here. Marvellous. But we are proud to be partnering with Peloton this year, who themselves are the official digital fitness partner of Liverpool FC. Ian, I'm doing the thing today where I'm saying to myself, 5 o'clock, I'm going to have a go.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to myself, Ian. I'm saying it to myself. We'll find out whether or not I will indeed have a go at it on. Yeah, well, you got it's. You know, I'm going to do a thing, a class.
Yeah, class. Yeah.
As I'm going all the way through, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm saying it to myself. So let's see. I've now said it on a podcast, so the people on the podcast can hold me to account afterwards. Yeah.
It's just out there. Yeah.
Got me shorts with me here.
If you want to have a go, you have a go. You get stuck in. Honestly, they're really, really good. When I do them, whenever
I've said it now as well.
Yeah, you said it as well. You should be held to account too. Whenever I do them, I'm always afterwards delighted I've done them, and I'm like, I really enjoyed that, but I've got to get myself geared up.
How often do you stick to it? So if you're saying you're doing it, is that nailed on?
So
I've seen a few doubters. That's what I'm saying.
No, and the right
to believe.
No, they should be doubters to doubters. Is my genuine position. So yeah, a lot of the time I say I come in big day. I think today I'll get to it. A few weeks back I got a big go in on a Sunday, but even then I still did a class. But I was like, I'm going to do one class then I'm going to take a break. Then there's in between the shows. Then I'm going to do another class. Didn't happen. Did one though. So we're going to see how it goes. So it's a big one today. And as I say, whenever I do it, I really, really enjoy getting on. And after the fact, I've never once regretted it. So I've just got to hold that in mind. I've got a lot of shows today. John's off, so I'm rattling all the way through. I've got trends at 3. I've got weekends at 4. So I'm thinking if I get weekend done 4 till 5, 5 o'clock, 20 minutes on the Peloton, feel great. If you see what I mean.
You do a 24-hour show marathon on the bike?
That sounds awful, Beth. For everyone concerned.
Sounds like something the subscribers would be into, don't they?
Yeah.
Well,
we put it out there now, so.
Well, yeah, I mean that doesn't count as what you've said.
Yeah, phone in if you feel that's a good idea.
There we are. Anyway, if you go to onepeloton.com/blog teams-and-challenges, you can see the Tour Peloton Club and stuff to do with team goals on there as well. And John's been sorting that out, the Tour Peloton Club. So this is going to be a big go today. We'll see how I get on. Weekends at 4.
You versus John, where's that at the
Got me kids upstairs. We're not doing it as versus.
No,
we're team players, Ian.
That would be good as well.
Yeah, it would be good.
Come on.
Kramer versus Kramer. That's yet again one for the teenagers as we were on. Anyway, whether we like it or not, we're going to move off Peloton and we are going to have to talk about Liverpool 2, Wolves 1. Ian, there hasn't actually been a ton of these, and I think that this is important. Even last season's problem was conceding first and then seeing it through. They'd concede early and so many times they'd turn it round and they'd end the game the stronger side, and there might be the odd wobbly moment, but I think it's the first time at Anfield I can think of where I think you can say a whole half, but let's maybe be a bit more modest and say half an hour, where they're genuinely on the rack, they're genuinely second best, and they're not second best to pomp Manchester City. That's second best to a Wolves side who sits 17th. And, as I say, it's something else. What is it? What do you think it was? What's your prognosis of what you saw yesterday? Because we've got to be honest and say that, whilst Wolves didn't really land a hefty blow in terms of chance after chance and the goalkeeper being repeatedly pressed into service, they were still the better side.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, your point there about last season, it is important to remember this season they have conceded the first goal at Anfield 5 times. So it's probably more than one or two think, and it's only one less than the entirety of last season. So it has been a little bit kind of prevalent. But I know I take your point, Neil. I think yesterday was a bit of a weird game in that for the first 45, it just felt to me like a lot of what you'd see any team who's going for a title do. It's quite, I wouldn't say comprehensive, but Liverpool never looked in too much danger in that first 45. Could they have been maybe better in the final third? Absolutely. Could they have moved the ball a little bit quicker? I'd say yes. But ultimately, it felt like a pretty kind of professional job in that first 45. And then what comes in the second 45 was mad, to be honest. I think, and we'll probably get into it in a little bit, but from a team selection point of view, I felt it was there or thereabouts in terms of what the manager picked. I did make a case on the pre-match show, which I host to the boys, to say, listen, I think Jota should start, because I think if he's anywhere near fully fit, and not the Jota we've seen at Plymouth, but the Jota that we know and love, if he's anywhere near that level, then for me, he does start above Núñez, and it plays out that way. I thought he might do something at left back, because it's 5 games in 15 days, and you're thinking if he's going to give Robertson a rest at some point, this felt like the one where he might do that, but he chooses not to. But then what plays out in the second half was really strange, because I'm looking at it and thinking, have they just come out a little bit too complacent here? Is that what it is? We'd have thought that first 45, Wolves didn't really pose us too much of a problem. Again, a lot of this is first, second, third gear stuff at most. Typical of what you'd say, as I said before, from teams who are looking to go on and win the league title. But then the more that half wore on, it was quite apparent to me that Liverpool did look tired, both mentally and physically. I think that was playing out in a lot of what you saw. I think, McAllister all of a sudden gives the ball away, which leads to the goal. And I think up to that point, he's been great. He's been really, really good. You see Gravenberch, without really putting too much of an effort in to stop Matthias Cunha with getting the shot off, he almost pirouettes out of the way. So I think you can just see it in a couple of performances where, yes, there's a bit of physical tiredness there, but I don't think you can underplay the mental tiredness given what went on at Goodison Park. And you were hoping on the back of that Liverpool could deliver not only a performance and a result. Now, they end up delivering the result, which ultimately was the most important thing. But going into another big week, you were hoping to see maybe signs that they were back on the march.
Trying to play in second gear. Ian's point there about complacency, mental tiredness. I think with these things, I want to be clear. I don't think, and also it's 11 different individuals on the pitch at any given time from a Liverpool point of view. So what one's thinking and doing might not be the same as what another one is. If we're talking about fine margins in terms of focus, I couldn't quite work out whether or not dissimilar in a way to Goodison, Jake. It's almost just come a bit too easy first half. I think the oddest thing about the derby that's not really been discussed other than on here that I've heard is all 4 goals just sort of come from nowhere. It's all a bit too easy. This one feels like the opener's just sort of good play, but happens. The penalty is soft from the goalkeeper. It just sort of happens. I want Liverpool are 2-0 up and they've not worked for it. And I just sort of wonder whether or not they came out, and as Ian says, they just thought, we'll just manage this through. And then all of a sudden Wolves had regrouped, got themselves organised, and maybe just realised Liverpool were vulnerable. I don't know. I think it's a difficult game to sort of say, it was this, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's in some phases it felt like a lot of games that we've seen at home at Anfield this season, and in some other phases it did feel a little bit odd and peculiar at times. I would suggest. I think going back to the game against Everton, albeit a completely different prospect than Wolves, I think what it would have give if you were their manager would have give a team who was struggling down there a little bit of glimmer of hope, a little bit of optimism against this imperious Liverpool side that everyone's been speaking about. I think if you were their gaffer, you'd be looking to their forwards and go, "Yous are well better than Everton's forwards, lads. You can get at these and have a bit of success. Look, Beth had some success and he's crap." You know what I mean? Literally. So I think there was a bit of that, and then also weirdly, playing footy at whatever level, sometimes when you go behind, it's a little bit like the shackles are off.
Yeah,
you can go and have a go. You're at Anfield, you're a professional footballer, enjoy the occasion and go and try and win the game. And I think, ultimately, we're not infallible. We're a team that, like most teams, it can be get at in certain moments, certain times, and we're in the middle of a difficult schedule. And something that I've been a little bit paranoid about, if I'm honest with you, is we're entering that trajectory, that period of time in the diaries. Somebody lives the life on Google Calendar like yourself, Neil, where it was in and around this time last year when it felt like legs began to fall off. It was in and around FA Cup 5th round sort of territory, wasn't it? And I think we'll begin to see that, no doubt. This team, we all hope that we'll go on to be from strength to strength, but ultimately it's a lot of games that they've played, both mentally and physically.
It's another way it's not dissimilar to Wednesday, Beth, is ultimately if the Salah Disallowed goal is given or the Jota penalty stands, or in my view Jota steps over the ball, it rolls through to Diaz and Diaz has got a much more straightforward finish, and on Wednesday if the final whistle comes 30 seconds earlier, we're probably all saying our professional stuff from Liverpool. They rode the luck a little bit just after half time, rolled with the punches, got to 3-0, saw it out. And this is the fine line. The only thing at the minute is Liverpool have got to be careful the fine line doesn't just start to go against them. That's my biggest concern at the moment. To Jake's point and Ian's point and tiredness and whatever else, is Liverpool are, I think, they're looking to just walk a little bit of a fine line. And if you get that wrong before you know where you are, you've got no wiggle room whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it felt coming into this one that Liverpool could have just done with a nice, easy 2-3-0 win, not too much in the legs, not an emotional, heart-stopping game. They just could have done after Thursday and after Wednesday rather, and ahead of a busy couple of weeks. They could have just done with a nice, easy game, and I think it sort of was shaping up to be that, wasn't it? Probably a little bit too easy in terms of.
Do you think they almost embraced that too much? Then coming out second half.
I think they did, and I think, like you say, it would have been a completely different game had that Salah one been allowed, had Jota scored. I'm sure we'll get on to Jota in a minute. I have no idea why he doesn't just try and put the ball in the back of the net there. But as soon as it goes to 3-0, that's game over. And I do think then, after both of those things in fairly quick succession go against Liverpool, I think that's when you see the ghost of the Merseyside derby start to creep in a little bit. And I was quite pleased, actually, that Arne Slot highlighted that after the game. Some managers might have tried to brush that off and said, "Oh no, there was no hangover from Wednesday." But I was actually quite surprised how much he really played on that and made a point of saying, "No, I think Wednesday was still in everyone's minds," and it was. I think it was very much in the players' minds. I think as soon as it goes to 2-1. It wasn't like the Liverpool that we've seen all season where they have a bit of an adversity and they step up and they bang up for it. It was as if they cowered a little bit, and I think it was about sort of clinging on rather than going again. And I think that fed into the crowd, and it's sort of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Was it the nervousness of the crowd that fed the players, or the other way around? But I just think it was a little bit like, you just felt like everyone in the ground was a little bit like, oh, not again, this is going to happen again. And I think the players just needed almost to get over the line to get that out of the system a little bit.
I enjoyed Josh's joke on the socials with a reference to, look what we've done to this fella already. I do think that this might end up sort of proving to be quite a big week for the manager. I was struck by the fact that he brought it back up again as well. I still think there's something in his somewhat glib pre-derby press conference where he discussed, we gave a lot of free kicks away there last season, as though, in some way, shape or form, that wasn't also informed by the refereeing. The manager ends up himself at the end of that match getting his red card, clearly being very, very unhappy. Then you see him post-match yesterday where he looks absolutely delighted, feels like, no, we've battled through one there. I do think that so far this manager has made it look easy. It's striking that all of a sudden, and I don't mean this as a criticism because it was always going to come, I'm fine with it suddenly looking like it's a bit harder for him, because I think that's where we're going to see the best of him. I think he's got a bit of work to do this week, is what I'm saying, before Villa. I think he's got a bit of work to do with his players, and he just needs to get them back on it and back sharp, and this could be the making of this whole Liverpool team. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, this is where I suppose he proves that he absolutely is the man to lead Liverpool to success. I've really enjoyed, actually, as much as it would have been quite nice to see Liverpool romp to a load of comfortable wins. I've quite enjoyed over the last few weeks sort of seeing more of his personality come out a little bit. I think, there was a lot of talk when he came in, would he be as charismatic as Jurgen Klopp? And I've sort of felt all season that even though he's obviously a very different kind of character, he's still got a lot about him. He's still a really charismatic guy and has a lot of good things to say, and that's really impressed me about him. But I think the last few weeks we have seen him sort of lose his head a little bit on the touchline. He'll obviously, you imagine he will pay the price for that. I think Liverpool have got until the end. Is it till Wednesday?
I think it is just anywhere. I don't think it's an appeal. I think it's one that they've got. It is a tribunal process, so he's got to turn up and have a chat about it at some point. So
whatever punishment comes, we'll find out in due course, and whether he'll be on the touchline for Villa or for City or who knows. But yeah, I think it is interesting. It will be interesting to see how he navigates what's probably the trickiest couple of weeks of the season, probably bar the run where they had City, Madrid, and I think even more so now because you have the added pressure, you have the mental fatigue, you have the physical fatigue. So yeah, it'll be a big week for the manager.
Big week for him, but again, 7 clear. 7 clear becomes the defining factor. He's able to do whatever conversation he wants to do today, tomorrow, with whichever of his players, all of his players, whatever he wants to do it, but he does it off the basis of, nothing got broken. It's 7 clear, boys, and you've seen that week off now, and there's new challenges. I'm not saying that these aren't big challenges, but I feel as though this is important to Ian, I think, to be able to suffer a little bit but come out the other side and say, yeah, we suffered a little bit, but look at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. They are in an unbelievable position, and it will often get referenced that, think back to August and you'd be 7 points clear. Of course you'd take it. When you are living and breathing this, though, it can be, regardless of having that little gap or quite a big gap, it can be stressful still, and
yeah.
that can obviously play into what happens on the pitch, because you could feel it in the ground. I thought at the weekend that people were getting a little bit anxious and stuff, and again, we talk about Goodison Park having an effect on the players. It probably had an effect on us, because you see it almost snatched away in that manner. And I said it on a show leading up to the game. Liverpool went great at Goodison. I thought they were really poor actually for large parts of that game.
They didn't deserve to win the game.
No, didn't deserve to win the game, and they should have won the game because of the game state. To get to that point in the match, you should see it out, because that's what you want title winners to go and do, or potential title winners. But football's football. That can happen. You move on, you park it, and on you go. And then the Wolves one was a little bit of a worry, because the way the second half just felt like it might unravel. We've all seen enough football. I was watching, I said to Beth before we came on air, I thought there was a chance this might go to 2-2. It had that smell where you felt if it went to 2-1, they might just get a little bit nervous, a little bit tetchy. They've had to make a change at centre-half, which ends up being okay in the end. I think Quanta comes on and does well. He has that little one where it gets away from him, and the guy goes through one-on-one, and Allison makes an unbelievable save, 1v1, which is brilliant. We really earned his money there. But then Quanta does go on to make that really important block, and you think for him that could do his confidence the world of good, because you felt like he's needed a moment like that
really
where he's played a part, and he can go, lads, I played a fucking part.
He struggled against Plymouth as well.
Listen, he's had a tough time. If you work your way back, you think about what that decision against Ipswich did for him in terms of just taking away some of that confidence that he built up the previous season. But again, it's football. Managers are allowed to make decisions. But this week, Neil, this is just a huge week for Liverpool Football Club. On paper, it looks really, really tough, and you can talk yourself into something that it's 3 games that, my God, you could lose all 3, that kind of thing. It's important to remember, Villa are pretty much mid-table at the minute.
It's striking in, and before I bring Jake and Beth in on it, what is suddenly striking is when you just sort of look at again, I mentioned other shows before, I'm pulling weekends together at the minute, and it's one of those weekends where I almost feel a bit like they pulled the scores from a lottery.
Yeah.
Everyone's just flawed, and everyone's just finding the matches a little bit difficult, and you feel as though everyone's feeling the workload. I watched Arsenal limp against Leicester and just look like, God, this is a graft. Apart from the young lad who looks like he actually works as a really interesting contrast. He plays like, oh, it's great, I've only ever played 10 games of football, I'm having the time of my life. Everyone else is playing like I've been playing this game for 100 years. You're watching that, you see that one and that one, then you look at suddenly you look up, and again, maybe there's another contrast. City have looked dire all year. Marmouche turns up, having a lovely time, banging them in, feeling great about it. But the flip side is you still don't think City are that good, and they've got their own thing going on, and they feel massively inconsistent. We're talking about Villa, 1-1 against 10-man Ipswich. They're like, well, that shouldn't be. And you can sort of go all the way down the league and go, what? The only result really that looks right in the way the game plays out, as well as the final score, really looks like it's Southampton 1, Bournemouth 3. Everyone else just looks a little bit like, well, we just pulled these scores out of a hat. Yeah. And I think that it does sort of tell where the moment is, and that's why I think it's, for me, when we're talking about this being massive, I want them to grab the moments, and I think that's what maybe why you are a bit frustrated with the previous 2 performances in different ways. And maybe they didn't need to do it against Wolves, and in the end they get the points anyway. But you feel like if they grab the moments in the next 3, they can really, really put the hammer down on everybody.
It's crucial if you navigate these 3, and by navigate I mean if you come out with, 7 points, I think most people will probably deal on that, because it is a tough 3. But if they were to go and get 3 wins, I think it's done. I think it's that important. I think it's done. I just think from an Arsenal point of view, and it's important to reference the injuries they've got, because that is hugely damaging. And yes, they get over the line against a really, really poor Leicester team, but for 80 minutes they toiled. They did toil, and yes, the kid comes in, no pressure whatsoever.
Looks great. Looks like such a talent.
Hasn't got a care in the world, and he probably won't have a care in the world for the rest of the season, because when you're that age, you just play with freedom. It's different when you've been around the block a few little times. And
when you're Odegaard, I thought Odegaard does well. He's their best player, second half, I think, Odegaard. But Odegaard's a really good example of, he's had 2 near misses of winning a league title. Yeah. And it's like, good God, this is another go at this. And we're 7 points. And if Liverpool get it to 10, and it's, you can understand how that can begin to weigh on you.
And things like pressure you can't really manage, but at this part of the season, and we saw it last year, it does play a huge part. But it was a really interesting weekend for those teams who we're going to face over the next 7 days, because you look at Newcastle, and I think if you'd have asked 100 people, probably 50 of them might have said they'll go to City and turn them over, because of the way they've been playing. They'll run all over them. City, loads of gaps in the middle of the park. It'll play into Newcastle's strengths, and they'll terrorise them. Doesn't play out the way. It's a comfortable 4-0. And Villa against Ipswich, I mean, that's a home banker every day of the week. And then, especially with 10 men, and that doesn't play out the way you think it should. So it's really hard to know how the next week will look, but you'd have to say if Liverpool are at it, in all parts of their game, they should have more than enough to go and deliver, as I said, a minimum of 7 points, but it will not be easy.
It won't be easy. It starts with Villa, Jake, and I just want to do this big picture bit before we get into specific parts of the game. One thing about Villa is they're a side that are good at running the heart of teams, and Wolves, it felt like, got a bit of joy through the middle of the park, the actual middle, not just in midfield across the pitch. I just mean literally the middle against Liverpool. But the carrot dangle in a 10 is absolutely enormous. 10-point lead. Do you feel as though they need to change anything? Do you feel as though he'll look at that? He'll be thinking today he needs to do something, for want of a better word, radical? Or do you think he'll think, we just need to be sharper as the way in which we get this sorted out and more compact?
Yeah, I think ultimately, we know what we're going to get with this team, certainly this season, don't we? It's interesting that we are in a transition, really, aren't we? He's almost troubleshooted Jurgen's team, hasn't he? He's come in as a consultant almost and gone, if you change this, you sit a bit deeper there, Gravenberch, and Diaz, you go through the middle there, let's see how we get on. And ultimately it's improved this season, but it's for me, it's whether you stick with Jota, he can do the 2 games, or you look to move Diaz in field and you play Núñez. It looks to me like he's probably not give up on Núñez, but he's fell down the pecking order, and the rest of the team stays the same. That being said, I do feel like we might be in for a similar game to the other 2 that we've just had as well, which terrifies me. But to your point, equally sounds of, it's exciting because there's a league title to be won, and you're not going to win it without challenges. And ultimately, that's what we're all in it for. That's what we're here for. But I think this team, it's still coming together, and if it's in sight, isn't it? And if it comes together with winning leagues, then you've got to go through periods of this, and ultimately, that's what, as I said, that's what we're in it for. That's what we're all here for. And it's games like this that you've got to come through. It's big, massive sides against Villa. It's Emery who's won sort of silverware. It's you've got to come through these periods, and it's not going to be easy. I was critical of them in the Plymouth game. Completely different set of players, but I thought you saw that they struggled to pace the game in that one. I don't think they get that back against Everton. New players come in, but I don't think they get that back against Everton. But Everton, I'll always say, it sort of exists on its own island to an extent, and it was deliberately immensely bitty. But then I don't think they get it back against Wolves either. They only paced that game particularly well. I think that we were probably all expecting the second half. Maybe you might get a bit of Wolves, but then Liverpool will rise and they'll just dominate in this way that they've been doing. That's what they've been brilliant at this season. That's why I'm asking about sort of, does he maybe need to change a thing or two? Or does he just need to sort of say, lads, let's get back to pacing our way through games where it feels as though the football match bends to our will over the course of the 90 minutes? Because I think that is the thing that has, more than anything else, and it's a very almost nebulous thing to sort of say, Beth, but that is the thing that to me feels like it's changed. The matches aren't just bending to Liverpool's will. Yeah,
and I think it's an intangible, isn't it? You can't sort of quantify how much having a bit of momentum and a bit of belief means for a team, and I just sort of think Liverpool have lost the way on that front the last couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, if you can go through a blip and you're still winning, drawing away at Goodison, which, Liverpool should have won that game, as Ian said, because of the game state, but 9 times out of 10 it feels like that game ends in a draw. So
a 0-0.
Yeah, exactly. So if anything, it was Liverpool overperformed by scoring twice. So I do think, I don't think there'll be radical changes. I think Curtis Jones possibly, because he looked so sharp against Everton. McAllister looked, I agree, I thought McAllister looked good for 60 minutes and then just sort of looked a little bit knackered. So I think, maybe does Jones come in, and then you've got McAllister who can come off the bench. Then I'd be up for putting Núñez in. I'm not sure whether he will. I think Villa.
I'll be up for putting Núñez in. They don't like him.
They don't like him. Villa
Sets the play.
Villa have got quite a few out, haven't they, as well at the back, and you just sort of think
Tyrone Mings back.
Yeah, you just sort of think it's the sort of game that, I don't think Jota did himself any favours with his performance yesterday, really, and I just sort of think Núñez, as poor as he was when he came on, which again we'll get into later, but I think it's the sort of game that might actually suit him. Although we've said that a few times and it's not quite panned out. So and I also don't think he'll start City unless he starts Villa and has an amazing game. So I could see him starting Villa. But yeah, I think Liverpool just need to just remind themselves who they are a little
I think
bit.
you must need to have a game where they go through it in 15-minute spells, Beth.
Yeah.
That was the first 15 minutes. That's what we expected, and we did our bit. Okay, 15, done. Next 15, we now do this. Oh, done. Got that in the box. And it doesn't. I'm not even saying it about what happens with the scoreboard. I'm just almost like I think they could just do with having a match where, not that they're perfect because it's impossible, but they feel like we've hit what we wanted to be in each of these 15-minute spells.
Yeah, it was like the Tottenham game a couple of weeks ago. That came off the back of a period where they'd had a couple of iffy results in terms of draws, and that defeat in the first leg to Tottenham, and it just sort of felt like that was the sort of performance where Liverpool came out, and yeah, there's mitigation. It was Tottenham, and they were without a number of key players, but it was a performance where you looked and you thought, this is a team of champions here. And I know it was a different competition, but it just felt like everyone on that pitch believed that they were the best team in the land, kind of thing. And I just sort of think Liverpool I really do think that the Goodison stuff has knocked a little bit of that out of them, but they just need to recover that. And I actually think some of Liverpool's best performances this season have come in games that on paper are really, really tough. Real Madrid, that week of City and Madrid, we were all saying, wow, if they get through this, then they're going to be some team, and they came through that 4-0 on aggregate, playing some of the best football that they've played all season. So if they can replicate that again this week, and I agree with you, and I do sort of think if Liverpool get through the next three and win all three, I think that's it.
Beth brings up Jota there, and I want to talk a little bit about the number 9 position. Not least because I think you get a case study in all directions over this. So Diaz, can't get near a goal, not involved, no goal mouth action. Goes left wing, doesn't just score, but bundles one in from 6 yards out. If you know what I mean, like literally scores like some sort of ridiculous classic centre forwards thing where he, as I say, bundles in, wins a pen. Bang, there you are. Jota, I don't think he had a good first half. He did my head in second half and just stopped carrying threat. Nunez came on and did my head in second half as well. Diaz has been doing my head in. I'm just a little bit like, the more and more I see it, and the more stuff like this happens, I'm like, it doesn't look a bad laugh playing number 9 for this Liverpool team. Everyone else gets to enjoy themselves. You barely get near the penalty spot.
Yeah, but I think Jota plays it the way the manager would want the centre forward to play it. So I thought he was good first half, Jota. I think you've got to take it into the context that he's not long back from injury, and they've been managing him a certain way. You see his performance against Plymouth, which is not at the level, but there is mitigation there. Just coming back, loads of different players, all that. But I thought he was good in that first 45. He arguably could have got off the score. He could have got on the score sheet quite early on with that left foot shot. He's just between the posts, but he skews it. But I think if you give him that chance with another week's worth of games under his belt, he probably takes it. He has the one where he wriggles away from the defender and gets a shot off near post. Knocks it round, which was hard lines from Jota's point of view. And then obviously he does what he does for the penalty, which everyone's focusing on what he does at the very end, and I get it, because he should just stay on his feet and try and finish that. And our defenders kind of closing in on him, but he probably just got enough time to get a shot off. But what he does in the build-up to it is really, really good. He stops, holds his run, Doherty bounces off him, and Doherty's lost it, he can't get back. It's really clever from Jota, and the cut inside's good. But obviously, he goes down when he shouldn't.
It's a split second though, isn't it?
It wasn't a pen. Listen, it wasn't a pen.
Who knows what's going on in that box?
I think you've got to call it as you see it sometimes. And I want him to try and stay on his feet there and finish it. But, it is what it is. The Nunez thing, so going into the game, I said it before, I thought Jota would start this one if he was fit and firing, and the manager thought he was at the right level. I had an eye on Nunez for Villa because I thought what he offers might upset them a little bit. They're just getting players back. Villa, Kamara plays centre-half at the weekend, and Mings comes on, to be fair, but it's not a perfect situation for them at the minute. So you can imagine Nunez potentially causing them problems.
It's very second choice centre-half partnership.
And he has been in better form. I've been quite critical of Nunez, for the majority of the season, and I think most of that is warranted, but he has been better. But he comes on at the weekend, fucking hell, he's a mile off it. He's an absolute mile off it. All the things I want to see from him, they just weren't there. He's offside, quite early on a couple of times. It's bouncing off him, nothing's sticking. But even the stuff that you expect to see from Nunez, where it's blood and thunder, even that didn't appear to be there and present. It was just a really odd thing. So I think what he's done there, he's put a seed of doubt in the manager's mind before Villa now, but he might be looking at Jota again and thinking, can he go again and give me 60? The reason I think Jota tails off in the second half of the game yesterday is because he was never going to be able to give you more than 60, given where he's been fitness-wise. And then Diaz just plays that role in a totally different way, where he's happy to sacrifice himself for large parts of the game, drop incredibly deep to try and facilitate others. But the problem with that is he's very rarely a threat up top, apart from the odd game. You think of Leverkusen and Spurs, where he is making really, really clever runs and stuff. But that feels like the exception rather than the rule when he plays number 9. So they have got a problem there. But I think... Yeah, on the back of yesterday, the manager might just be looking at Jota and thinking, can you do me another 45, 60? Whereas, as I say, a week ago, if you'd have asked me, I probably would have said Nunes will start Villa.
I think first off, I take Ian's point, and I think it is maybe a little bit closer. It's worth saying it's his starting 3 for the first game of the season, when Liverpool go away to Ipswich. That is the front 3 he goes with, that he wants to play at that point in the season, Jake. The only thing is, I'll say again, Jota plays a really important part in the opening goal. It's a lovely play on the halfway line, gets everyone involved. Then the ball just sort of gets into this mad situation where it's just missing them out. And around the penalty area, the ball just seems to miss them out. It doesn't seem to matter which of them it is. Yeah. And that to me is the oddest part of this a little bit. The 3 very different footballers. But, I mean, we've seen stuff in bursts, don't get me wrong, up to and including Nunes' huge contribution away at Brentford. So you've seen a burst of, and this is what it could look like. But it just sort of looks a little bit, I don't think we're any the wiser. You said before about sort of a little bit of transition and et cetera, et cetera. If you ask me to scout a number 9 for this manager now, I'd go, well, where do I start?
Yeah, I've been saying that all season, really. And you don't really know what Arne Slot number 9 looks like for Liverpool yet, because we've got 3 completely different versions, none of his own, and let's be honest with you, that from 3 are all there really to service Salah. And as long as that lasts, we don't know, do we? So it is.
So it's all about serving Salah. It really is all about serving Salah.
It is, and he's the man who's coming up with the goods, isn't he? And that's been my sort of only slight criticism of this team really, and maybe the organisation this season is. Can we not do something to help him out a little bit, Because if he's not banging one in from sort of 10, 15 yards, then ultimately what's your next goal threat? Gakpo, to be fair, he's done well recently.
Well, whoever plays left wing's the next goal threat. That's the phase of this, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. But we still don't really know what we want from there. I agree with what Ian said. Jota for me is the standout out of the 3. I don't think many people would disagree with that. But even still, we're getting to the point where it's a bit like Danny Sturridge territory, isn't it? 2015, 2016, where you can't really keep him on the pitch. Your team gets used to not playing with him, and then he comes in and plays, and your team kind of revolves around him, and then he's out again. So for me, that's why he's looking a bit sort of like he's getting missed out. And if he's not looking tip-top shape, that's why, because he's a little bit rusty, do you know what I mean? But for me, people talk about needing a centre-half, needing somebody to back up Gravenberch. I think that's really hard to do, by the way, because he's like Paddy Vieira on steroids. That is the problem position for Liverpool. It is your number 9. That for me is the number 1 position.
I think so. I sort of both simultaneously really agree with Jake and don't, Beth. In that,
wouldn't be the first time.
No, because my thing is like in terms of what I want from a football team, I love the lads who play centre forwards. Like genuinely, I always have done. I always will do. I grow up watching Rush and then Aldridge and Robbie Fowler, and you can do the list of these footballers who are just geniuses. But it might be that he thinks, no, we're going to play this way. It is going to be about who's playing left side and right side. That is actually what he wants, or what he wants at the moment with Salah. I think he's a pragmatist. I don't think there's like some sort of idealism amongst it all, Beth. But I just feel like it's another game where you're literally no step closer to the answer. And part of that is the fact that Diaz plays really well. He just plays really well in a way that if he'd have banged that performance in and been doing it, does the same stuff, but he's been doing it from the number 9 position, I'm going, well, finally. This is the oddity of the whole thing.
Yeah, and to be fair, I actually don't know if it's just a slot thing or if it's a Liverpool thing, because really, Liverpool at the most successful under Jurgen Klopp obviously was that front 3, but Roberto Firmino wasn't a conventional number 9, but he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was the facilitator, wasn't he? He was the glue, and that's why he was very rarely sort of at the top of the list of top scorers. He was there to service the 2 on either side of him, and you almost think, is that something from the players almost getting used to playing in a different way?
Okay, just for fun, you can have any Liverpool striker at his peak, but he's got to be number 9. I don't want any. So Firmino counts.
Okay.
So to play in this team right now, you can have anyone that you've watched in your lifetime. Who would you have?
In my lifetime, Suarez.
So you whack Suarez.
Yeah.
You go Suarez.
I mean, just because I feel like he could bang
That'd be
them
a
in
laugh,
front of
wouldn't
me.
it?
Yeah, it'd be
Would
fun.
be a laugh.
Who would you have?
I mean, Suarez is the best one, probably. In fairness, he's one of the. I think he's one of the greatest players that's ever pulled on the shirt. You know, people all talk about legacy because he wasn't there very long, but in terms of ability, he could do everything. Absolutely, he could sacrifice himself, but he could also play that proper number 9 role as well. He's unbelievable. But I think if you asked Mohamed Salah, he'd probably say Firmino.
Yeah,
I think Slot would say Firmino.
I think
as well.
Slot would say Firmino.
Yeah.
So that because it throws open, there will be stuff you've just said there on recruitment. There will be stuff about what are we going to do in the summer, what's going to work here, what's going to work there. If you'd end up in a situation where you're saying, well, you'd want someone who's got Firmino-ish flavours, then it knocks a few of the.
Well, it depends what Salah's going to do as well, because if
Yeah,
Salah,
of course,
if Salah's-
let's just allow for that for this
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah.
let's allow that the fact that there's going to be more Salah. I'm not saying I know
Not
that for
going
certain,
there,
but for the sake of for brevity, but you think it'd be Firmino in the world where there's more Salah. Both of you, yeah.
I
do,
think
yeah.
so. I think, but then, like you say, if we all think that Slot would go for that, then I think most Liverpool fans would want, if you ask them that the number 1 choice this summer would say Alexander Isak. That's probably what I would say as well, just because he looks like the best number 9 in the world at the moment. But then you look at someone like Cunha and you think, well, would he be a better fit in terms of if Slot wants someone who will drop a little bit deeper, who can drop into midfield, who can facilitate?
He has got the Firminos about him, hasn't he?
Yeah, cute, clever. You think is that the sort of player that Slot might fancy it as a number 9?
I think Cunha likes to play with a 9. No, I think he likes to play. If you look at Mateus Cunha's like kind of where he plays a lot of his games, he often ends up in attacking midfield areas. He drops that deep and he likes to have a 9 in front of him. He can play as a 9 and he has done before, and he can play as a second striker. He pulls left and right a lot when he plays.
Sounds like you're describing Firmino.
I think he's a brilliant player, but I think they offer slightly different things. Like I think when Gary O'Neill talked about Mateus Cunha, and I love Cunha by the way, I've been banging on about him for ages, but when he talked about Mateus Cunha, he would say that others had to do was running for him a little bit. You could never accuse anyone about saying that about Firmino, because he did a lot of the hard yards. Now, I'm not watching Cunha every single week, and as I say, I think he's a brilliant footballer, but I think 1 or 2 teams might struggle to fit him in, depending on the style. I banged the drum, Jordan, at the summer. I thought City should have bought him. In terms of the profile of the squad, what they needed, freshen it up, he can do bits all over the place. I thought City should have been in for Mateus Cunha, and I think that's one where they've missed a trick. But listen, they've gone and got Marmouche, but I do think he's a great player. Like
I think it's just really interesting. And the bit of Firmino that we sort of forget is the ways in which he's a bit. He would have stuff that was a little bit like an old-fashioned target man as well, who played I think the Firmino bit that's forgotten is he was a centre forward. He was a forward who played through the centre. Yeah. If you see what I mean, I think that gets lost when you start to use language like false 9 and all of that. So that literally, he did so much of really good stuff. Of like, I think, for instance,
back to goal,
he'd have been better at both Jota and Nunes second half yesterday of getting us out for a period and just relieving pressure in a bit of an old school. I'll back in here, I'll do that there, I'll win this battle, I'll make his life. And I think that's the little bit that I don't think any of the 3 of them. I think Diaz turns it into more of an attacking midfield thing, a floaty thing. I like Blundell's line at times. He looks a bit like if that Arsenal team had got Pires to go and play centre forward. I think there's a bit of truth in that. I think that Nunez just wants to be the main man who's going beyond all the time. And I think if you built an attack around Nunez, you'd probably get 30 goals a season out of him. You just have to put up with the fact that you built it around him and everything that comes with that. And I think with Jota, he's the nearest, I think, to what we're sort of describing in terms of being able to centre forward it. But there's the fitness question, and there's other bits and pieces. I just think it's dead interesting, and I think like yesterday was one of those where it came out the ground and I thought, well, we're further away from that one than we were before.
Madly with Liverpool's number 9s as well. I think if I'm going off pure speculation here, but I reckon if you got them in a quiet room like this and asked them where they'd like to play, I bet they'd all like to play out left as well.
Well, I think that for other teams, they probably a couple of them would either rather play through the middle. But right now, for us, yeah, if you were any of them right now, you'd think, well, if someone else does that, exactly. I might get to score. Yeah, that'd be nice, and go from there. I just want to do briefly on Van Dijk, Jake, because. Just literally, probably shouldn't do it this way, but I was in Newington last night. Will be sadly missed, and just 2 separate people. One in particular, a pair who'd been in the match, but it was the first game they got to all season. They just couldn't get over it. What he does, the way he plays, and I just sort of began to think, Christ, if we just all become sort of inured to this, where we go, oh yeah, Virgil was really good today, but I'll give him man of the match to X. We are watching brilliance every week, and it's important not to take it for granted. Liverpool aren't very good yesterday, but Wolves don't create, apart from one one-on-one that's being referenced, a serious chance of note. And Virgil plays this game where he's about 3 different things at once, but the best version of all 3 of them.
Yeah, I'm simultaneously made up and gutted that you've come to me because I absolutely love the man, but what else is left to be said? He's imperious. For me, he's the best centre-half that I've ever seen play the game. You know, generation arguments will always happen in pubs and coffee shops and whatever, but he's like Michael Jordan Space Jam, that type of gear, playing centre-half, and I completely ran out of superlatives for him, and I think the only thing I'll add into the many comments of sort of superlatives of what people have mentioned about Virgil is he doesn't get enough credit for the injury that he had and the level that he's got back to. He was the best centre-half by a country mile in the world before he got injured. He's come back and he's become the best centre-half again, and it took him a while, don't get me wrong, he was never that far off it, but he's so far ahead of the rest of the pack, and I think what you're seeing now is a player who's completely comfortable in his skin, a leader of men, a captain, and somebody who knows that there's things to be won in a finite amount of time to win it, whether he stays or he doesn't. He knows his career's not going to go on forever, and he knows you don't always get an opportunity as good as what you've got now, a 7-point lead and a really good team to win the Champions League. And I think he's a scary prospect to go up against at the moment, and I'm fucking loving seeing it.
I think one thing I've noticed about him a lot this season is just how much he talks on the pitch.
Loads.
You know, Slot has referenced a number of times what a good leader he is and how he's almost like his coach on the pitch, and that's not just in games, it's on the training pitch as well. And a couple of times this season I've sort of had spells where I've just honed in on him and watched him, and he's constantly talking to people around him, in front of him, you can always hear him shouting push, getting the team to push up. He's just against Tottenham a couple of weeks ago.
He's doing that whilst also passing or winning his battles. That's
and he makes it look so easy.
Yeah, he's doing that and this at the same time.
Against Tottenham a couple of weeks ago, Liverpool scored the first goal, obviously to go level on aggregate, and all of them are celebrating, and Virgil's the first one saying to them, no, come on, back to the centre circle, there's still work to be done. And yeah, he is such a, I think that what Jake said about sort of being comfortable in his own skin, I think he's really grown into this captaincy. I think he's a natural leader, but I think now he looks and he feels like, no, this is my team, it's my responsibility. You know, it's even down to things like players walk through the mix zone after every game, and Virgil stops every single week, at every single game, no matter the result. And you know, players don't have to do that. Most players don't stop ever. And even though he's captain, it's not a compulsory part of his job. He obviously does loads of other media stuff as well, but he stops every week. And I think that is just because he thinks, and to be fair, he did that before he was captain, but I think he relishes that opportunity to be a leader. And I think then, just to touch on Jarell Quansah as well, because I think, you know, you do note a difference when he's playing alongside Van Dijk. And again, that's a testament to how good Virgil is, that I think he makes the players around him better. I asked Slot yesterday about Quansah, and he was quite effusive, which you don't often get from Slot about individuals. He's usually quite sort of contained when he talks about individuals. But I really liked what he said in the sense of saying, you know, Jarell is back to his level, back to the level of last season, and he's seeing that on the training pitch, which, you know, could be valuable. But we know Canate has maybe been slightly off the pace the last week or so. So yeah, but I think Virgil just makes the players around him better.
I think he definitely understands what it means to be a Liverpool captain as well. You know, there's a picture of him as when he's made captains. There's got something in the training ground where it's like engraved, and you can kind of see that, like, he knows that's a moment of history almost. And I think he was respectful to Henderson and Milner. But it's like he almost feels like an old school type of Liverpool captain to me in some ways, even though he's from the future playing centre half.
He conducts himself like a captain as well. I think, you know, all the stuff, and I think Carragher's mentioned this a couple of times on Monday Night Football, but how he's been around the contract situation stuff has been exemplary. It's been perfect. It's exactly how you'd want him to manage it, all in-house. I think it's hard to remember really a time when there's been such a gulf between the best one and then the next best centre-half. The gulf is massive between the first and second, and you can have a discussion about who the second one is, but we know who the first one is. There's no fucking doubt. And anyone who understands the game, we can all be tribal about things, but you start to look a little bit silly when you start picking out certain names from certain clubs years gone by that just aren't fit to hold a fucking candle to this fella. They're not fit. I actually thought, weirdly, he had a poor game at Everton, but it can happen. But I think over the course of the season, if you're just basing it on performance, I think he's been the best one for us this season. I think his performance levels have been absolutely sensational from the very first game. As I say, as that little tiny blip at Goodison, but it was a mad game, and things can happen that just get out of control at a stadium like that. But his performance levels have just been nothing short of world class, week in, week out. And there's a lot he has to do. I agree with the guys, in terms of just setting the line, being a leader, talking. The manager doesn't go over the top on many players. He does it for the goalkeeper. He does it for the captain. He always says, every training session, he's at it. And because he's at it, guess what? They're all fucking at it.
I want to talk briefly about them. First and foremost, it's mad the 17th, but you can sort of see why the goalkeepers not the standard that they need. Combine that in with the fact that they haven't got, you said before, they want someone at number 9, but they really haven't got an outstanding one in there as well. The old style cutting edge of someone like Pedro Neto in wide areas, that's gone. But they end up being, I think, they're a good side, and I thought when we went to Molineux, I thought they were a good side between both boxes, but it's in boxes where football matches are so often won and lost in both directions. There's a little bit of a thing where I actually think, said before for an hour, McAllister, really, really good. I think Szoboszlai plays well. I'm fine with Gravenberch in this one. But it did feel like they were good in the middle of the park, and the way they were set up second half, I could see from where I was, especially, it became this 3-3-4, and what that gave them was 8 players through the middle, well, not even counting the goalkeeper, 8 players through the middle of the pitch. And I think you think about United, when United came into Daredzin, they had 8 players through the middle of the pitch as well. The back 3, 2 midfielders, 2 attacking midfielders and a front man through the middle of the pitch, just occupying you and making it difficult, making you sort of drown in treacle. I just worry it could be a little bit of a way home against us, respecting them as being good. But the two sides I've referred to, they're both bottom half teams, and they are bottom half teams. These are not false positions Wolves and the famous Manchester United find themselves in. But they both, I think, managed to, at Anfield, clog us up in a bit of a way.
Yeah, it was interesting what they did. I mean, the subs massively helped them, who come on at half time. I think it's Bellegarde, is it Menezzi, I think he pronounced his name. Who I believe,
Bellegarde's a good player.
Yeah, he comes on.
Good against us a couple of times.
Comes on, does bits. And the other lad is, I believe he's a centre midfielder when he was playing in France, and all of a sudden he's thrust up front for large parts of this game, and he's caused a bit of a problem. As I say, he gets through for the one-on-one, which, as I say, Quansah probably could do a little bit better for, but he's not long into the game. But that does cause Liverpool a problem. And you referenced the midfield there. I thought most of them were okay for the majority. I did think Gravenberch looked a little bit tired again on the back of Goodison Park, but he's been outstanding this season. Maybe we've slightly overplayed him, and if the manager is looking at making changes for Villa, you can imagine Curtis won't be too far from his thoughts, because we did look a little bit leggy in there, and it is a little bit worrying that we're still at times a little bit too easy to play through for my liking. I think, again, we'll probably come back to kind of signings and stuff over various shows as we move through the summer, but you can still see a scenario where Liverpool will be looking to kind of reinforce the middle of the park, because there are certain times where it just looks a little bit light in there. But yeah, they're a decent side, and you are surprised that the 17th, the manager after the game was like, that's how my team should be playing. But far too often this season they've been found wanting, because they just look like a bit of quality in key moments, but in Matheus Cunha they have got someone who can in any given moment provide real genuine quality.
The end, I ran the numbers before, I had a little look before, and the end with an expected goals of 0.87 over the course of the game. Their average open play shot on the expected goals is 0.05. 1 in 20 of them will go in, and 1 in 20 of them does. And that's the thing, that's almost where it ends up. You can have one fly in when that's the case, but one flies in, and it's still not enough. Liverpool have got themselves the 2 goals on the board, and that must be the frustration for them, really. I'll say again, I think there's a massive gulf between them and Leicester, them and Ipswich, them and Southampton, and at least the one between them and Southampton is represented in the table, Jake. It is a bit of a problem, though, in that you've ended up committing 8 men to tons and tons of midfield, and someone's got to not just be on the end of chances, but be part of the lads you're supplying to create really, really good chances, and they just didn't have that player, I think, and so therefore they bog us down, they do our heads in, they make us at times look a bit ordinary, the way they move the ball around, but the trade-off of that is, but there's no one who's looking lively for them in the attacking areas in the final third. Yeah,
I mean, the story is, Wolves had us under the cosh, and we, hung on by a thin thread, but then, you think back and go, well, what really did they really create? Did balls flying across the 6-yard box and everything like that? But But make no mistake, if they do go down, there's going to be a lot of clubs looking at a lot of those players going, don't mind him, I'll have him. And do you know what? I'd have a couple of them as well. Don't mind the left back either.
I adore the left back. I prefer him to the lad at Bournemouth.
Yeah, I agree. He's got a bit more about him, I would say. But yeah, they're not going to be sort of shorter shooters there. But they do look far too good to go down to me, and enjoyable to watch as well.
It is odd that they've ended up in this pickle, but it sort of isn't, Beth. They've been selling assets for a few years, and assets tend to be lads who do stuff in the final third for you. They looked a centre forward like last season, and now they managed to look somehow another centre forward like when they didn't have one in the first place.
Yeah, it does seem slightly mad that that's not a thing that has really been addressed. Was Strand Larson, is he injured?
Yeah, he's injured at the minute,
right.
yeah. And he's looked tidy enough, but he's also only on loan.
Yeah, so it does feel strange that they haven't rectified that, because it does feel like they've needed a centre forward for a long time. But then how many clubs have we saying that about? You know, how many clubs don't have a designated centre forward?
We're one of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I suppose we have one in Jota, I guess, is you'd probably on paper put him down as a centre forward, but he's not, again, your conventional target man, is he? So I think it's easier said than done to say, just go out and buy a forward, because that doesn't always work out. So yeah, but Wolves, they're always a tough team to play. Even when Liverpool were at the best in the title winning seasons and things like that, those games, whether they're at Molineux or at Anfield, I can't remember too many games where Liverpool have hammered Wolves.
No,
it's very often.
Probably the last one under Klopp.
2-1,
where Semedo gets himself sent off, and Liverpool absolutely just create chance after chance. I think it finishes 3-0.
Yeah, it's very, very rarely by that kind of margin. And I think as well, more broadly, that's why I know I saw a fair bit of nervousness on social media yesterday after the game, and I understand that, and I understand the trepidation ahead of a really big week. But I also think, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but we look back at 18-19 and 19-20. I think Liverpool actually were only 2 points off where they were at this point in 18-19, and
yeah, 62 they were on.
I think the general consensus is that team played better football than the one that actually won the league, but maybe just got a little bit unlucky at times. And it's well, hang on a minute, if that sort of super team that we all look back on and revere and talk about how great they are, they were only 2 points better off, this team's doing something right. And in those seasons, Liverpool beat Tottenham at home, I think, in the 18-19 season, and it's a really scrappy own goal late on. And
I can think of loads of games.
Yeah, there's Villa, Villa in the title-winning season.
19-20 at home to Watford, 14th of December. Yeah. Liverpool are dreadful. They could be 2-0 down after 20 minutes. They're absolutely awful, and yet they turn it around, they get to 2-1, and they hang on for dear life.
See the points totals, though, when they showed it after 25 games in 19-20, they're on 73 points.
Yeah, but that's because they were absolutely incredible.
Joke,
yes,
but even in that season, they go away to Norwich, I think it is, and they win 1-0 thanks to a brilliant goal from Mane. But
there's so much weather.
Yeah, there's so, and it's so I think it's easy to look back and say, Liverpool, that they're not doing well enough, they're not beating teams comprehensively enough. But actually, when you look back, it's very rare that even teams at the very best are flattening teams week in, week out.
This is what it is to win a league title. It's never going to be your own way over 38 league games. You've got to sometimes suffer. Sometimes you'll be great. Sometimes you'll just do enough. You've got to go sometimes first, second, third gear because you're managing yourself for what's to come. There's all of that in there. I think, Neil, your point about Ait-Nouri there, I was thinking about this before. Do you think he's maybe better suited to play more of a wing back than a natural left back? I'm talking about it in terms of, I thought yesterday for Robertson was also quite a tough afternoon, I thought. I don't know what you thought about his performance.
I thought Robertson ends up really weirdly. I actually think as it gets harder for everyone else, Robertson just sort of clarifies this is the job today and plays better in a bit of a funny way. I thought he had a really odd first half, but I think last 20, anything that's coming down Robertson's flank, he's just dealing with in that really...
He got through it quite well. He gave a bit to the crowd as well.
Yeah, listen, I love Robbo, and I found it hard to maybe kind of talk about some of his performances this season because we've loved him that much, but I just felt... There's a period of the game where he settles and he's okay, but there was a lot of moments in the game where he's trying to nick things and he's getting there ever so slightly late.
Well, don't get me started.
There's one in the second half. The chance where Quansah clears it, I mean, fucking Robbo's nearly in the cop. He's that deep. Do you know what I mean?
There's one in the second half where he goes to go, decides not to, then decides to go, then doesn't get there.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, and this is where I do have a minor worry about this, is that if he'd have just gone the first time when he thought about going, he'd have got there. This wasn't about, he's lost a bit of pace on that. It was like, he just had that split decision in his own head. And I was just like, just back yourself there, lad. That ball's yours. And we'd have been on the counter, not only would he have got there, he'd have been leading the charge going the other way.
But I think there's a little bit of... He's second-guessing himself a lot now in games. So, the bit where I talked before where he's slightly deeper than the line, I've seen him do that before, even at his peak, but now you do see that more often where he's just giving himself a little bit more of a lead on the forward, just so he can get in if he has to. And I do think it's a problem, but Liverpool have got a problem in the sense that the backup lad is also a concern. His levels consistently aren't quite there. But when we talk about Robertson, I was thinking about him, as I say, the other day on a show, and when you talk about fullbacks, you always tend to pigeonhole them as they were great going, backwards towards their own goal, or they're great going forwards. Andy Robertson could do both. He was that good. He was one of those left backs where he had absolutely everything. Maybe he couldn't shoot that well in terms of scoring goals, but in terms of assists, in terms of defending, it was very rare he would deliver you any less than a 7 or an 8. And by the way, there were plenty of 9s in there as well. But now those games feel a little bit like the exception rather than the rule.
The Aït-Nouri point, I understand why people look at him and think it could be a bit of a... I mean, I hate the phrase, I'm going to use it anyway, just hate me for it and we'll all get over it. It could be a bit seen as a little bit of a fancy Dan of a left back. But I am of the view with him that when it's got to be said, like, I think he's often defended Salah really well. It's like today Salah's here, so I've got to switch on to this. I think he's one of those players who's playing for a side that's lower down, where because there's quality's not quite there in the team, he's asked to be whatever we need you to be today for the quality purposes. So today we need you to be a really rampaging left wing back style. I think the same again. When I thought Robertson was fine yesterday was when there was absolute. I think one of the things that Robertson has found difficult this season is the clarity of what it is you're asking me to do at left back.
He's the one in transition as well. It goes back to what I was saying before. He's now his balls to play are different. Where he starts is different. Where he ends is different.
Massively, and I think that. But second half, as I say, it just got clearer. The job here is to win this 2-1. That's why I think Robertson got better, because there's complete clarity. My job now is to make sure he doesn't get past me. That goes in touch. We get organised. We win the throw and we clear the ball. We get the heads and I block that off. I know how to do this. I'm 100% all in. And I think that if with someone like Aït-Nouri, if you whoever they get anyway, they're all going to get coached by Liverpool and Arne Slot. And I just think the idea of Aït-Nouri getting elite level coaching, playing with elite level players, where the onus isn't on him maybe to be absolutely brilliant because we don't like your left winger particularly, but we think you're really good. I think he could step up. And that's,
I think he's a good player, no doubt.
That's what I think is possible. Anyway, let's get over. We've got Natasha Dowie and Mark McBay now talking about Natasha running a marathon.
It is John Givens in the studio with a couple of old friends, with Mark McBay and also Natasha Dowie. Mark from the McBay Foundation and Natasha Dowie from Scoring Goals. Thanks for both of you coming in, first of all. Mark, just before we get into what Tasha's putting herself through at the moment, pounding the streets, just a little bit more on the foundation itself. I mean, lots of Liverpool fans will be aware of it, will have seen the jumpers that Tasha's wearing there, but just a little bit more about the history of the foundation and its involvement with Liverpool Football Club.
Yeah, well, all started from Liverpool Football Club, really. Owen was a young fan, part of the 1906 Bayern Cup, and used to wave his flag on the cup. And shortly after he passed away, the lads made a flag in his image, which got put out at one of the live games, and that image eventually became the foundation logo, which the club, right from the off, have been behind, backed us right from the start, right up until now and present, and people like Tash, who are attached to the club, still attach themselves to us and the fans in general. So, in terms of the money you raise, in Owen's name, where does that go? Who are you able to help on, on an annually basis? We support children off 3B all day. So it's children suffering with cancer in the Merseyside area, and we do that in hundreds of different ways, which Tash has seen up close and personal. But we create life memories for them, and we do that using venues and access within this city. So like the Echo Arena, the Empire, the Jockey Club, Liverpool Football Club. We create relationships with them where we're able to take the kids and give the kids a really special occasion. We do that in big groups of over 100, and we do it personally with one-on-one with the families as well.
So, I mean, it's an amazing charity, and presumably found out through Liverpool, like a lot of us did, about the work they were doing and wants to get a bit more involved.
Yeah, do you know what? It was funny. We were kind of figuring out how actually I first met Mark, and it was through Sammy Lee. He invited us to this event called A Lunch Like No Other at the art school. And it was really just to celebrate and to try and, you know, get a group of friends together really, but then to try and raise money to obviously go towards the foundation and tell stories and have special guests come in and eat good food, which obviously I love. But from there, pretty much I just fell in love with Mark and Joe, and you know, we have become a real family now. And I remember Mark invited to us an event at the arena, a music event, and straight away I said, like, I want to get involved. You know, since retiring, it's been lovely to be able to give more of myself. You know, when you're a football player, it's quite a selfish lifestyle. And Mark just said, Tash, relax. There will be a moment, whether it's in a year, 2 years, 5 years, where you will be able to, you know, get involved and have an impact. And
sounds like the mafia, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You'll get a call.
And then, and funny enough, this one telling me he kind of almost wanted this to happen. Yeah. I remember a kind of post went up on the social media, on the Instagram, the McBay Instagram, saying they've got one space available on the London Marathon. Reach out if you'd be interested. And straight away, messaged him. It's never appealed to me ever, but then I just thought, what a kind of event to run for, and for this foundation. I just said, Mark, can I be the one? And he said, couldn't think of anyone else better to run it than you. But he told me afterwards, I was kind of really
just throw it out there and see if she bites.
Me had 100 people, and really and so it began. I'm running the marathon and I cannot wait.
Well, obviously I'm so disappointed that space went, so I'm going to have to just cheer from the sides and stuff, but I mean, you must be looking forward to it in a way, because my sister's done the London Marathon, and we went down to watch her, and even that was an occasion. So like you say, maybe not something you plan, but on the day it's going to be incredible.
Do you know what? It's exactly what I needed, and Mark even said that, again, since retiring, losing that structure, losing a purpose, something to train for. And this is exactly that. You know, every day I can wake up and I can go through my program, I can tick off the weeks, you know, days completed, and it's lovely to have that kind of that drive and something amazing to run for. We've already nearly raised £21,000, which is incredible, and we want to keep pushing that. But I think for me, I just really want to enjoy the day. You know, I'm not a runner, you know, but I'm going to complete it. But I want, if anything, just to make sure I soak it up, because it's meant to be a great occasion, and I want to make sure I really enjoy it and make the most of it.
I'm just laughing because I know how competitive you are. I just want to enjoy it.
I'm kidding myself.
She'll have her time in her head, and if she doesn't beat it, don't try and talk to her after.
It's so true. It's so true.
But, I mean, what does it mean for you to have not just Natasha's support, but all these other legends as well? You know, Tasha said there, Sammy Lee was who sort of got it down, and the club have been involved with you guys for a long time, and to be perfectly frank, it could have been a short thing and then see you later, couldn't it? But it's not been.
Shock of it all for us, you know. I remember when they said we're going to put the t-shirts in the shop for, it's going to be 1 week. It's been 8 years, you know, and it's still there, and the support we get off that from the club, and the fact it was more about people. You know, the retail team decided when he met, he just wanted to help us. Yeah. And then they seen what we done with it, and he wanted to help more. And that's lovely. And then the fans were seeing that then from all over the world, and that was touching us. And they were doing fundraisers in New York and in Philadelphia, and it was predominantly Liverpool fans that put us in a position where we could genuinely help. And that's lovely for us, because home was a huge red. Yeah. It was. So his club was showing them love, and we're showing love to all the kids beyond that. And you're right, the art school, the lunch club, you know, the hardest thing about that is you're getting ex-players coming up at the match saying, can I get in? And you're like...
Sorry, I know you played 100 times for Liverpool, but just play this. Throw it on Sammy Lee, But
it's hard, because they have such a good time, don't they? And I said to Sammy, you know, what's in it for you? You know, we just want to help. We just want to help, and we have a lovely day, don't we?
It's the best.
4 times a year. And Paul's really accommodating up there. We have just grew it into a lovely
But you hear great things as well that I didn't even know about, like Virgil being a massive part of it as well, and you don't really hear about that. And this is what I love, is that there's people that don't want to be probably put out there, and they're just happy to be behind the scenes. But this is how special this club is that everyone is in it, you know, and I think that's what makes Liverpool just great.
It just shows that there's a lot of good people who work for this club, isn't there? And sometimes we can moan about the club that we love, and they should be doing this and should be doing that, and listen, you know, we'll always hold them to high standards because we love them, but you're living proof and proof from whatever you've done that there's a lot of good people, and you know, if they can help you, then they will.
Yeah, they've just given us a platform and then kept us on that platform to be able to help so many other people. And they've done it with a real, you know, moral compass. You know, it's really been fit in the way it's been done. Looked after me and Joanna's people and parents who'd lost a child, and then an idea born from that, you know, from ownership level that backed it and said, go, do it. And we have done.
Yep.
So.
But like you said, most of the support for the charity and for the foundation and for Owen has come from fans, and this is another way to help and support. Again, and it's Tashu's got to do the run. All you need to do is help out in any way you can. And so the fundraiser is live. The best place to find that across your social media.
Yeah, on my social media. It's in my bio. The link's there. And like I said, any support, like small, big, whatever it is, it's just about really getting behind the foundation, and I'm going to complete it, and hopefully I'll be showing little clippets as well throughout the couple of next months building up to the marathon, so you can enjoy the journey, and then obviously throughout the marathon and then right at the end. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
And if you're beating Sammy Leonardo or paddle now, imagine in a couple of months when you're when your marathon levels, you know what I mean? They're going to be having no chance. We'll try and put the link in the bio for this show as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, it should be in there as well. Or if you're enjoying this as a podcast, I say this, I'm speaking straight to a camera, but if this is a podcast, it should be in the bio. If you can't find it on any of those ways, just message me or the Anfield Wrap, and obviously we'll sort it out as well. But good luck. Not long till the Olympics if it goes well.
I know you're a runner as well, so you might have to come and do some training with me beforehand.
That's the problem when you do something like this. You get both there, and the next thing you know, you're sort of doing more. And Mark, thanks so much for coming in. Really glad it's still going well. I'm really glad that Liverpool fans are still supporting you.
Brilliant.
Okay, I want to talk about the ticket prices, which have been confirmed this morning that they've been frozen, general admission and season ticket prices for 25-26. Liverpool's statement says that they held meaningful engagement discussions with the supporters board on ticket prices, grateful for their important and significant contribution to those discussions, and going from there. And the supporters board themselves have also come back on this too, and have made clear that they welcome Liverpool's decision to freeze the ticket prices after meaningful engagement that was committed to following last season's price increase. They've represented the views of the supporters with the members group on the club's initial proposals on pricing, and they were unanimous and unequivocal that prices should not and did not need to increase. Those views have been heard, and Liverpool go on to make clear as well. A survey was sent out to over 500,000 Liverpool supporters last October, asking for the views on a number of ticketed related topics. It goes on, the statement, even more to talk about the club updating ticketing principles that have been created in consultation with the supporters board, and policies around ticket access, making it a realistic goal for all supporters whilst also recognising loyalty, and so on. It's always going to be a live issue, Beth. All aspects of it are always going to be a live issue, and hopefully we're going to get to do some stuff on it across the next few weeks now that this has been confirmed. But I think first and foremost, Liverpool should be applauded for going through the process with the discussions, the supporters board and all parts of it, for their professionalism in representing the views that they've represented. Both parties deserve to be applauded, and it feels as though it's the outcome that makes sense for both general admission and season ticket prices to be frozen for the league season 25-26.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? I think it is that commitment to having that dialogue that is the thing that should be applauded. It shouldn't necessarily be that they've decided to freeze the ticket prices, because I think that is the right thing, and I don't think just because every other club is doing it that Liverpool should necessarily do it.
The increases, you mean? Every club doing it,
yes.
doesn't mean Liverpool should do it, yeah.
But the meaningful dialogue is really important. I think you've seen, a lot of clubs, a lot of fan bases are protesting this season over price rises. Manchester United, it's got quite vitriolic, I think, with not just for the ticket increases, but the redundancies and all of the cuts and financial measures that they're taking there, and the supporters groups just aren't very happy with the club. So I think for the club to really seriously sit down with the supporters group is important. It's come to the outcome that I think everyone wanted and feels is fair. And just, broadly speaking, on all issues that affect the fans, just having that genuine link, and it's not just a token thing of saying, we'll speak to the fans. It's a genuine thing. People sit down and they talk and they try and get to the bottom of what is right for the club. It is really important.
It's about moving forward together. I think especially at this moment in this season, the one thing that you didn't want to see was some of the either an extension or a deepening of what goes on around this point last season. You know, I've pointed out before as well, the time of year that we are. It was around this time last season where the wear increase is confirmed moving forward. Some people feel as though that led to part of a bit of damage to the club in the moment. I don't necessarily agree with that, but what I always think is that Liverpool, Jake, is at the best when everyone moves forward together. And that's what this gives everyone an opportunity to do for the next 12 months with ongoing conversation, because my God, is ticketing a live and complicated issue.
Yeah, you know, less distractions the better on the pitch, isn't it? And you know, there's been enough of them over the past 12 months or so. So certainly great there. But yeah, let's not forget that a lot of people kind of dedicate the lives to this, both at the club and you know, and supporters club and stuff like that, and they need to be commended, because there's been a lot of good work that's been done over the past 10, 15, 20 years, I would say, to get us to this point.
I think I think all around, Ian, I think that the whole process, everyone's involved with the clubs, but also the supporters board, with Spirit of Shankly, with Spine Cop, with the various other organisations that feed into that supporters board. And I include the club in this as well. I think there's a staggering level of maturity. I think that is, to me, that is the thing to praise. Both maturity in terms of a corporate level that doesn't just go, fucking ignore these pricks, can't be arsed, which genuinely other football clubs do. That is, it's part of almost, it feels cultural that that's the case. But also, and this is the part that I think is much more important to praise, a maturity amongst those supporters groups, the Liverpool support in general, the people who represent them and who've represented them now for a long time. It's a remarkably mature process, I think, this, and I think it speaks volumes for the excellence involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, let's remember, you know, there is a club not too far away from here, acting completely in isolation and doing whatever the hell they like. And I think, you know, supporters of that club at the minute are looking at their football club.
Sefton Park Rangers.
I'm not recognising. Yeah. But
I don't know. They're all way far too long, those pricks, haven't they?
I fucking set it up for that one. But I think, no, maturity is the word. And listen, I think at times we will... you know, beat the owners over the head a little bit on certain things, and rightly so at times, because, you know, mistakes have been made. But when they do something like this, then you've got to give credit where it's due, absolutely. And I think if you're going to have a supporters board, then you absolutely should engage with it. That's the whole point. And I think there was maybe issues around that last season with the price increases that you're referring to, Neil. But this is all about learning, isn't it? And making sure we get better as we move through. And they've done that. And I think, yeah, everyone deserves huge credit. And as Jake said, you know, some of the work that goes into this, you know, it's very easy to sit, you know, at home or in your ivory tower or wherever you want to be and criticise people who are giving up their own time to do some of this, to make the supporter experience better for everyone where they can. With the big point being that you can't please everyone when it comes to ticketing. It's a fucking really hard thing, and I say that as someone who's got a season ticket. So
yeah, we all know we're privileged.
So we are privileged, absolutely. So for me, sometimes it's hard to get involved in some of the wider ticketing stuff, because I don't ever feel it or I'm not touched by it in the same way, where people have got to give up time and, you know, take time off work to try and get tickets and all that. And that's before you get into the expense issue, where, you know, when you do start to see small little increments, people will go, well, hang on a second, it's only a tenner, it's only 20 quid. But sometimes that's the start of something. And if you give people an inch, they take a fucking mile. So sometimes that has to be nipped in the bud. And as Beth said, you know, just because other clubs are doing it, that doesn't mean that's the right way to do it. You know, we don't have to compare ourselves to other clubs when it comes to ticketing and stuff like that. So yeah, listen, really good news. People seem pleased. And as you said, if we can go ahead with this mature approach, then that feels like the way home.
Yeah, loads and loads of bits and pieces. It's worth pointing out, you know, the price of a ticket on the Kop remains the same as they were almost 15 years ago. That is obviously very, very important all the way through. The new freeze means that is, you know, that will remain the case. Things have got more expensive. I think we all know that in different areas of what we do. I mean, God, I know we're doing the Anfield Wrap. Things have got more expensive over an extended period of time. And I think that everyone is just looking to work together and keep things moving forward. And I think that the conversation that will be had around how ticketing work goes from there will be really important. Just last thing, though, is football tickets are too expensive. They're too expensive everywhere. They're too expensive for every club. And if I was to ask Liverpool to do one thing, is that they could lead the argument to put a price cap across the Premier League. Liverpool could go out and make that argument and say that all ticket prices for for general admission, and season tickets should be kept at X. Would that make them popular with other Premier League clubs? The answer is no. But which Premier League club is popular with any other Premier League clubs these days? It's going off all over the place, so why not make a stand somewhere else and say, you know what, let's just say it should be 40 quid everywhere, and then they can do the aways as well if that's what they absolutely wanted to do. Just one man's view, but you never know. Liverpool, it's, let's all have a big battle together. We'd all find ourselves on the same side and we'd all be pulling all the way through. It's been a pleasure. Asho Rourke has looked after the images all the way through this. I've looked after the sound whilst also talking. My God, he's a man of many talents.
Virgil van Dijk over
absolutely. We're saying that now, we haven't checked back. It could be an unmitigated disaster. And it's been a pleasure all the way through. Jake Nolan, Beth Lindop and Ian Ryan. Check out whatever Beth's up to on ESPN. It's all been good so far. So hopefully that will continue as we move ourselves along in there as well. Liverpool going to Villa Park on Wednesday. I can't tell you how big it is. Win there, 10 clear.